Hello, good evening to you all. How are you doing, guys? Today I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna do a little stream. I've got like an hour and a quarter, hour and 50 minutes before I need to go to like a Torah lesson I have in 8:30 o'clock. So what I'm going to do to you today, I've got this book over here. This is a Game of Thrones, the illustrated edition by George R. R. Martin, the 20th anniversary of the Game of Thrones. This book came out with pictures and a very nice addition of the editing and illustrated photos and very big font and very nice edition. So I'm gonna read to you with a little bit of commentary with voice acting by my side, the prologue and the first chapter, Bran 1. So let's get this over with. So as you can see, we got a nice picture over here of the north and over the south of Westeros. We start in the north, over the wall, and over in Winterfell. We've got like a nice picture of black and white illustrated of the castle of Winterfell. Let's get to it. Got like a nice illustrated White Walker against Men of the Night Watch. That's from the prologue. I'm gonna read to you right now. Prologue. We should start back, Garrett urged, as the woods began to grow dark around them. The wildlings are dead. Do the dead frighten you? Sir Wymer Royce asked with just the hint of a smile. Gary did not rise to the bait. He was an old man, past 50, and he had seen the lordlings come and go. Dead is dead, he said. We have no business with the dead. Are they dead? Royce asked softly. What proof have we? Will saw them, Garrett said. If he says they are dead, that's proof enough for me. Will had known they would drag him into this quarrel sooner or later. He wished it had been later rather than sooner. My mother told me the dead man sings no songs, he put in. Before I go on with the prologue, let me share the link over in my Discord group. Just a second. Okay, got this over here. I'm gonna share the link in my Discord community. Over here. Also gonna share it over here. Also gonna share it over here. Also gonna share it over here. And also gonna share it that's enough for now. Just a second, guys. אהובה זה קישור לסטרים שאני עושה עכשיו לפני השיעור תורה. אני עושה הקראה מספר, את יכולה להקשיב או עושים במיוט, אני מאוד אשמח. זה מאוד יעזור לי אם תצטרפי לזה ותשימי אותי ברקע, זה מאוד מאוד עוזר לנו. תודה אהובה ואוהב אותך. Okay, let's continue. Second page. My wet nurse said the same thing, Will, Royce replied. Never believe anything you hear at a woman's teeth. There are things to be learned even from the dead, his voice echoed, too loud in the Twilight Forest. We have a long ride before us, Garrett pointed out. 8 days. Maybe 9. And night is falling. Sir Wymer Royce glanced at the sky with this interest. He does that every day about this time. Are you unmanned by the dark, Garrett? Will could see the tightness around Garrett's mouth, the barely suppressed anger in his eyes under the thick black hood of his cloak. Garrett had spent 40 years in the Night's Watch, man and boy, and he was not accustomed to being made light of. Yet, it was more than that. Under the wounded pride, being made light of, under the wounded pride, Will could sense something else in the older man. You could taste it, a nervous tension that came perilous close to fear. Will shared his unease. He had been 4 years on the wall. The first time he had been sent beyond. All the old stories had come rushing back, and his bowels had turned to water. He had laughed about it afterwards. He was a veteran of 100 rangings by now, and the endless dark wilderness that the Sophron called the haunted forest had no more terrors for him, until tonight. Something was different tonight. There was an edge to his darkness that made his hackles rise. 9 days they had been riding, north and northwest, and then north again, farther and farther into the wall, from the wall, hard on the track of a band of wildlings ragers. Each day had been worse than the day that had come before it. Today was the worst of all. A cold wind was blowing out of the north, and it made the trees rustle like living things. All day, Will had felt as though something were watching him, something cold and implacable that loved him not. Garrett had felt it too. Will wanted nothing so much as to ride hellbent for the safety of the wall, but that was not feeling to share with your commander. Especially not a commander like this one. Sir Wymer Royce was the youngest son of an ancient house with too many heirs. He was a handsome youth of 18, grey-eyed and graceful and slender as a knife. Mounted on his huge black destrier, the knight towered above Will and Garrett on the smaller garrons. He wore black leather boots, black woolen pants, black moleskin gloves, and a fine supple coat of gleaming black ringmail overlaid of black wool and boiled leather. Sir Wymer had been a sworn brother of the Night's Watch for less than half a year, but no one could say he had not prepared for his vacation, at least in so far as his wardrobe was concerned. His cloak was in his crowning glory, sable, thick and black, and soft as skin, but he killed them all himself, he did. Garrett told the barracks over wine, twisted the little heads of our mighty warrior. They had all shared the laugh. It was hard to take orders from a man you laughed at in your cups. Will reflected as he sat shivering atop his garron. Garrett must have felt the same. Mormon said as we should track them, and we did, Garrett said. They're dead. They shan't trouble us no more. They're hard riding before us. I don't like this weather. If it snows, we could be a fortnight getting back. And snow's the best we can hope for. Ever seen an ice storm, my lord? The lordling seems not to hear him. He studied the deepening twilight in the half-bored, half-distracted way he had. Will had ridden with the night long enough to understand that it was best not to interrupt him when he looked like that. Tell me again, What you saw, Will. All the details. Leave nothing out. Will had been a hunter before he joined the Night's Watch. Well, a poacher, in truth. Malister, three riders, had caught him red-handed in the Malister's own woods, skinning one of the Malister's own bucks. And it had been a choice of putting on the black or losing a hand. No one could move through the woods as silent as Will, and it had not taken the Black Brothers long to discover his talent. The camp is 2 miles further in, over the ridge, hard beside the stream, Will said. I got close as I dared. There's 8 of them, men and women both. No children I could see. They put up a lean-to against the rock. The snows pretty well covered it now, but I could still make it out. No fire burning, but the fire pit was still plain as day. No one moving. I watched it a long time. No living man ever lay so still. Did you see any blood? Well, no, Will admitted. Did you see any weapons? Some swords, a few bows. One man had an axe. Heavy looking, double-bladed, a crude piece of iron. It was on the ground beside him, right by his hand. Did you make note of the position of the bodies? Will shrugged. A couple are sitting up against the rock, most of them on the ground, fallen like. Or sleeping, Roy suggested. Fallen, Will insisted. There's one woman up in ironwood, half hid in the branches, a far eyes. He smiled thinly. I took care she never saw me. When I got closer, I saw that she wasn't moving neither. Despite himself, he shivered. You have a chill? Royce asked. Some, Will muttered. The wind, my lord. The young knight turned back to his grizzled man-at-arms. Frost-fallen leaves whispered past them, and Royce the steers moved restlessly. What do you think might have killed this man, Garrett? Sir Wymer asked casually. He adjusted the drape of his long sable cloak. It was the cold, Garrett said with iron certainty. I saw men freeze last winter, and the one before, when I was half a boy. Everyone talks about snows 40 foot deep, and how the ice wind comes howling out of the north. But the real enemy is the cold. It steals up on you, quieter than will. And at first you shiver, and then your teeth chatter, and you stamp your feet and dream of mulled wine and ice hot fries. It burns, it does. Nothing burns like the cold, but only for a while. Then it gets inside you. It starts to fill you up. And after a while, you don't have the strength to fight it. It's easier just to sit down or go to sleep. They say you don't feel any pain towards the end. First you go weak and drowsy, and everything starts to fade, and then it's like sinking into a sea of warm milk, peaceful like. Wow, yeah, this description of the cold creeping on you. Over here it's very very cold, like I got like the AC running over here, dressed very well, but it's very very cold, and outside is much more cold. It's close to 0 degrees over here, Celsius, so it's very cold over here. I really see myself in the description of cold creeping up on you. Let me take this break to take a nice shot, nice sip of black labeled whiskey. Just a second, guys. Cheers. Such eloquent, Garrett, Sir Wymer observed. I never suspected you had it in you. I've had a cold in me too, lordling. Garrett pulled it back his hood, giving Sir Wymer a good long look at his stumps where his ears had been. 2 ears, 3 toes, and the little finger of my left hand. I got off light. We found my brother frozen at his watch, with a smile on his face. Sir Wymer shrugged. You ought to dress more warmly, Garrett. Garrett glared at his lordling. The scars around his ear holes flushed red with anger, where Master Aemon had cut the ears away. We'll see how warm you can dress when the winters come. He pulled up his hood and hunched over his garon, silent and swollen. If Garrett said it was the cold, Will began. Have you drawn any watches this past week, Will? Yes, my lord. There's never been a week when he did not draw a dozen bloody watches. What was the man driving at? And how did you find the wall? Weeping, Will said, frowning. He saw it clear enough, now that the lordling had pointed it out. They couldn't have froze, not if the wall was weeping. It wasn't cold enough. Royce nodded. Bright lad. We've had a few light frosts this past week, and a quick flurry of snow now and then, but surely no cold fierce enough to kill 8 grown men, men clad in fur and leather. Let me remind you, with shelter near at hand and the means of making fire. The knight's smile was sure. Will lead us there. Will, lead us there. I would see this dead man for myself. And then there was nothing to be done for it. The order had been given, and honor bound them to obey. Will went in front, his shaggy little garon picking the way carefully through the undergrowth. A light snow had fallen the night before, and there were stones and roots and hidden sinks lying just under its crust, waiting for the careless and the unwary. Sir Wymer Royce came next, his great black destrier snorting impatiently. The warhorse was the wrong mount for ranging, but try and tell that to the lordling. Garrett brought up the rear. The old man-at-arms muttered to himself as he rode. Twilight deepened. The cloudless sky turned a deep purple, the color of an old bruise. Then faded to black. The stars began to come out. Half moon rose. Will was grateful for the light. We can make a better pace than this surely, Royce said when the moon was full risen. Not with this horse, Will said. Fear had made him insolent. Perhaps my lord would care to take the lead. Sir Wymer Royce did not deign to reply. Somewhere off in the wood, a wolf howled. Will pulled the garon over beneath an ancient gnarled ironwood and dismounted. Why are you stopping? Sir Wymer asked. Best go the rest on the way on foot, my lord. It's just over the ridge. Royce paused a moment, staring off into the distance, his face reflective. A cold wind whispered through the trees. His great sable cloak stirred behind like something half alive. There's something wrong here, Garrett muttered. The young knight gave him disdainful smile. Is there? Can't you feel it? Garrett asked. Listen to the darkness. Will could feel it. 4 years in the night's watch, and he had never been so afraid. What was it? Just a second, guys. Really enjoying this. Wind, trees rustling, a wolf. Which sound is in the unmans you? So, Garrett. When Garrett did not answer, Royce slid gracefully from his saddle. He tied the destrier securely to a low-hanging limb, well away from the other horses, and drew his long sword from its sheath. Jewels glittered in his hilt, and his moonlight ran down the shimmering steel. It was a splendid weapon, castle-forged and new-made from the look of it. Will doubted it had ever been swung in anger. "The trees press close here," Will warned. "That sword will tangle you up, my lord. Better a knife." "If I need instruction, I will ask for it," the young lord said. "Garrett, stay here. Guard the horses." Garrett dismounted. "We need a fire." "I'll see to it." "How big a fool are you, old man? If there are enemies in the wood, a fire is the last thing we want." "There's some enemies a fire will keep away," Garrett said. "Bears, and direwolves, and other things." Sir Wymer's mouth became a hard line. "No fire." Garrett's hood shadowed his face, but Will could see the hard glitter in his eyes as he stared at the knight. For a moment he was afraid the older man would go for his sword. It was a short, ugly thing, its grip discolored by sweat, its edge nicked from hard use, but Wills would not have given an iron barb for the lordling's life if Garrett pulled it from its scabbard. Finally Garrett looked down. "No fire," he muttered, low under his breath. Royce took it for acquaintance and turned away. "Lead on," he said to Will. Will threaded their way through a thicket, then started up at a slope to the low ridge where he had found his vantage point under a sentinel tree. Under the thin crust of snow, the ground was damp and muddy, slick footing, with rocks and hidden roots to stir you up. Will made no sound as he climbed behind him. He heard the soft metallic slither of the lordling's ringmail, the rustle of leaves, and muttered curses as reaching branches grabbed at his long sword and tugged on his splendid sable cloak. The great sentinel was right there at the top of the ridge, where Will had known it would be. Its lowest branches a bare foot off the ground, Will slid underneath, flat on the belly, in the snow and the mud, and looked down on the empty clearing below. His heart stamped in his chest. For a moment he dared not breathe. Moonlight shone down on the clearing, the ashes of the fire pit, the snow-covered lean-to, the great rock, the little half-dozen stream. Everything was just as it had been a few hours ago. They were gone. All the bodies were gone. "Gods!" he heard behind him. A sword slashed at the branch as Sir Wymer Royce gained the ridge. He stood there beside the sentinel, long sword in hand, his cloak billowing behind him as the wind came up, outlined nobly against the stars for all to see. "Get down!" Will whispered urgently. "Something's wrong." Royce did not move. He looked down at the empty clearing and laughed. "Your dead men seem to have moved camp, Will." Will's voice abandoned him. He groped his words that did not come. It was not possible. His eyes swept back and forth over the abandoned campsite. Stopped on the axe, a huge double-bladed battle axe still lying there where he had seen it last, untouched, a valuable weapon. "On your feet, Will," Sir Wymer commanded. "There's no one here. I won't have you hiding under a bush." Reluctantly, Will obeyed. Sir Wymer looked him over with open disapproval. "I am not going back to Castle Black, a failure on my first ranging. We will find this man." He glanced around. "Up the tree. Be quick about it. Look for a fire." Will turned away, wordless. There was no use to argue. The wind was moving. It cut right through him. He went to the tree, a violating gray-green sentinel, and began to climb. Soon, his hands were sticky with sap, and he was lost among the needles. Fear filled his gut like meal he could not digest. He whispered a prayer to the nameless gods of the wood, and slipped his dirk free from its sheath. He put it between his teeth to keep both hands free for climbing. The taste of cold iron in his mouth gave him comfort. Down below, the lordling called out suddenly, "Who goes there?" Will heard uncertainly in the challenge. He stopped climbing. He listened. He watched. The woods gave answer, the rustle of leaves, the icy rush of the stream, a distant hoot of the snow owl. The others made no sound. Will saw movement from corner of his eyes, pale shapes gliding through the wood. He turned his head, glimpsed a white shadow in the darkness. Then it was gone. Branches stirred gently in the woods, scratching at one another with wooden fingers. Will opened his mouth to call down a warning, and the words seemed to freeze in his throat. Perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps it had only been a bird, reflecting on the snow. Some trick of the moonlight. What had he seen after all? "Will, where are you?" Sir William Royce called up. "Can you see anything?" He was turning in a slow circle, suddenly wary, his sword in hand. He must have felt them, as Will felt them. There was nothing to see. "Answer me! Why is it so cold?" It was cold. Shivering, Will clung more tightly to his perch, his face pressed hard against the trunk of the sentinel. He could feel the sweet, sticky sap on his cheek. A shadow emerged from the dark of the woods. It stood in front of Royce. Tall it was, and gaunt, and hard as old bones, with flesh pale as milk. Its armor seems to change color as it moved. Here it was white as new fallen snow. There black as shadow, everywhere dappled with a deep gray-green of the trees. The patterns ran like moonlight on the water with every step he took. Will heard the breath go out of Sir Wymer Royce in a long hiss. "Come no further," the lordling warned. His voice cracked like a boy's. He threw the long sable cloak back over his shoulders to free his arms for battle, and took his sword in both hands. The wind had stopped. It was very cold. The other slid forward on silent feet. In its hand was a long sword like none that Will had ever seen. No human metal had gone into the forging of that. It seems almost to vanish when seen edged on. There was a faint blue shimmer to the thing, a ghost light that played around its edges, and somehow Will knew it was sharper than any razor. Sir Wymer met him bravely. "Dance with me then." He lifted his sword high over his head, defiant. His hands trembled from the weight of it, or perhaps from the cold. Yet in that moment Will thought he was a boy no longer, but a man of the night's watch. The other halted. Will saw its eyes, blue, deeper and bluer than any human eyes, a blue that burned like ice. They fixed on the long sword, trembling on the high, watched the moonlight running cold along the metal. For a heartbeat he dared to hope. They emerged silently from the shadows, twins to the first. 3 of them, 4, 5. Sir Wymer may not have felt the cold that came with them, but he never saw them, never heard them. Will had to call out. It was his duty. and his death, if he did. He shivered and hugged the tree and kept the silent. Oof, wow, that's very nice description of the others. It's like zombie monsters. Let me check something. Hey Avichai, how are we doing? Hey Shoshi, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. I'm doing like a reading of, voice acted reading of a Game of Thrones illustrated I got over here. This is the prologue, and I'm gonna read after that the Bran 1, the third chapter. So thank you for joining me. How are you doing? Okay, let's keep going. You know what I'm gonna do right now? Before I continue, let's keep the suspense. Let's light up a cigarette and get into the scene. This is a very nice scene describing. Just a second, guys. Oh, come on, light this fucking thing up. Oh my god, just a second, guys. Light my Zippo. Okay, nice, got it. Oh, nice, let's get into it. Okay. The pale sword came shivering through the air. Sir Weimar met it with steel. When the blades met, there was no ring of metal on metal, only a high, thin sound at the edge of the hearing, like an animal screaming in pain. Royce checked a second blow, and third, then fell back a step. Another flurry of blows, and he fell back again. Behind him, to right, to left, all around him, the watchers stood patient, faceless, silent. The shifting patterns of the delicate armor making them all but invisible in the wood. Yet they made no move to interfere. Again and again the swords met, until Will wanted to cover his ears against the strange, anguished keening of the clash. Sir Weimar was panting from the effort now, his breath steaming in the moonlight. His blade was white with frost. The others danced with pale blue light. Nice, 4 people in the chat. Let's see who joined. We got Avichai over here. We got Shoshi over here. Okay, 4 people in the chat. I cannot see the 4th one, but thank you for joining. We're in the middle of reading, voice acted reading of Game of Thrones. Song of Ice and Fire, first book, illustrated edition. We are right now in the prologue. Thanks for joining. 4 people in the chat is very huge for me. Let's continue. Again and again, swords met until Will wanted to cover his ears against a strange, anguished keening of the clash. Sir Weimar was panting from the effort now, his breath steaming in the moonlight. His blade was white with frost. The other danced with a pale blue light. Then Royce's parry came a bit too late. The pale sword bit through the ringmail beneath his arm. The young lord cried out in pain. Blood welled between the rings. It seems in the cold, and the droplets seemed red as fire where they touched the snow. Sir Weimar's fingers brushed his side. His moleskin glove came away soaked with red. The others said something in a language that Will did not know. His voice was like the cracking of ice on Winter Lake, and the words were mocking. Sir Weimar Royce found his fury. "For Robert!" he shouted, and he came up snarling, lifting the frost-covered longsword with both hands and swinging it around like a flat sidearm slash with all his weight behind it. The other parry with almost lazy. When the blades touched, the steel shattered. A scream echoed through the forest night, and the long sword shivered into 100 brittle pieces, the shards scattering like a rain of needles. Royce went to his knees, shrieking, and covered his eyes. Blood welled between his fingers. The watchers moved forward together, as if some signal had been given. Swords rose and fell, all in a deathly silence. It was cold butchery. The pale blade sliced through the ringmail as if it was silk. Will closed his eyes. Far beneath him, he heard the voices and laughter sharp as icicles. When he found the courage to look again, a long time had passed, and the ridge below was empty. He stayed in the tree, scarce daring to breathe, while the moon crept slowly across the black sky. Finally, his muscles cramping and his fingers numb with cold, he climbed down. Royce's body lay face down to the snow, one arm outflung. The thick sable cloak had been slashed in a dozen places, lying dead like that. You saw how young it was. He was a boy. He found what was left of the sword a few feet away. The end splintered and twisted like a tree struck by lightning. Will knelt, looked around warily, and snatched it up. The broken sword would be his proof. Garrod would know what to make of it, and if not him, then surely that old bear moment or Master Aemon. Would Garrod still be waiting with the horses? He had to hurry. Will rose. Sir Wymer Royce stood over him. His fine clothes were a tatter, his face a ruin. A shard from his sword transfixed the blind white pupil of his left eye. The right eye was open. The pupil burned blue. It saw. The broken sword fell from nerveless fingers. Will closed his eyes to pray. Long, elegant hands brushed his cheek, then tightened around his throat. They were clothed in the finest moleskin and sticky with blood, yet the touch was icy cold. What a great prologue. That was the prologue. Very nice. I can see in the beginning of the chapter there's like a nice illustrated picture of the fight between Royce and the other. So you can see over here. I'm gonna show you the picture. You can see. This is the White Walker in his armor fighting Sir Royce. You can see over here. Okay, that was the first chapter. Now, let's go to Bran 1. Okay, so just a second, guys. Let me take a quick break, and we're gonna read Bran 1, and then I have to end because in half an hour I need to go to like a Torah lesson. Cheers, Avichai. It's a nice whiskey I got over here. Black label. Okay. Wow, my ears are very, very, very hot. I need something cold to drink. Let me fix myself something to eat and something cold, icy cold to drink, like water, and then I'll be back. Quick break, guys, and then we'll read the first chapter. This was the prologue. Then we read the first chapter, Bran 1. Just a second, guys. I can close the AC. I got like a nice cold beer over here. Like a nice cold beer, Heineken. Cheers everybody, cheers Avichai. You can, next time you can come to me, we drink beers and a nice whiskey. Nice. Okay guys, let me take a few sips of beer, and then we'll read Bran 1. And also I would like to smoke another cigarette, and then we continue. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll start with the smoking. Just a second, guys. Let me take a few sips of beer. You know what? I'm gonna smoke outside. No. Let's just continue. I got half an hour before I need to stop. So I'm very hot right now. Let me take off this sweater. Okay, that's a lot better right now. Nice, I got like 3 live viewers. That's what I need the average to be after 30 days. If I got like a little bit more, it would be great, like 4 or 5. But if I keep it 3 live viewers right now, it's very good to get myself an affiliate, which I really like to get. And also I would like to get to the TwitchCon at the end of May this year. TwitchCon in Rotterdam. I would like to go with my fiancé to it, so you can meet me guys over there, like my little community over here. You can meet me there, but I need to buy tickets right now, and I would like to get affiliate before I buy the tickets, because you get extra perks. And then drink a few beers. My ears are burning. Okay, let's continue. Bran 1. I got a nice illustrated picture of Jon Snow with his direwolf over here at the start, as you can see. Yes, I think that's Jon Snow. Okay, Bran 1. Bran. The morning had dawned clear and cold, with a crispness that hinted at the end of summer. They set forth at daybreak to see a man beheaded, 20 in all, and Bran rode among them, nervous with excitement. This was the first time he had been deemed old enough to go with his lord father and his brothers to see the king's justice done. It was the 9th year of the summer and the 7th of Bran's life. The man had been taken outside a small holdfast in the hills. Robb thought he was a wildling, his sword sworn to Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall. It made Bran's skin prickle to think about it. He remembered the half-tales of old Nan told them. The wildlings were cruel men, she said. Slavers and slayers and thieves. They consorted with giants and ghouls, stole girl children in the dead of night and drank blood from polished horns. And the women lay with the others in the long night to sire terrible half-human children. But the man they found, bound hand and foot to the holdfast wall, awaiting the king's justice, was old and scrawny, not much taller than Rob. He had lost both ears and a finger to frostbite, and he dressed all in black, the same as brother of the Night Watch, except that in his furs were rugged and greasy. It's Garrett from the Prologue, the old man in the Prologue. The breath of a man and horse mingled, steaming in the cold morning air, as his lord father had the man cut down from the wall and dragged before them. Rob and John sat tall and still on their horses, with Bran between them on his pony, trying to seem older than 7, trying to pretend that he'd seen all this before. A faint wind below through the holdfast gate. Over their heads flapped the banner of Starks of Winterfell, a grey direwolf racing across an ice-white field. Bran's father sat solemnly on his horse, long brown hair stirring in the wind. His closely trimmed beard was shot with white, making him look older than his 35 years. He had a grim cast to his grey eyes this day, and he seemed not at all the man who would sit before the fire in the evening and talk softly to the age of heroes and the children of the forest. He had taken off father's face, Bran thought, and donned the face of Lord Stark of Winterfell. There were questions asked and answers given there in the chill morning, but afterwards Bran could not recall much of what had been said. Finally his lord father gave a command, and 2 of his guardsmen dragged the rugged man to the ironwood stump in the center of the square. They forced his head down onto the hard black wood. Lord Eddard Stark dismounted. His ward, Theon Greyjoy, brought forth his sword. Ice. That sword was cold. It was as wide across the man's hand, and taller even than Rob. The blade was Valyrian steel, spell-forged and dark as smoke. Nothing held an edge like Valyrian steel. His father peeled off his gloves and handed them to Jory Cassell, the captain of his household guard. He took hold of Ice with both hands and said, "In the name of Robert of House Baratheon, the first of his name, King of the Andals and the Rhoynar, and the first man, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, by word of Eddard of House Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, I do sentence you to die." He lifted the great sword high above his head. Bran's bastard brother Jon Snow moved closer. "Keep the pony well in hand," he whispered, "and don't look away. Father will know if you do." Bran kept his pony well in hand and did not look away. His father took off the man's head with a single sure stroke. Blood sprayed out across the snow, as red as summer wine. One of the horses reared and had to be restrained to keep from bolting. Bran could not take his eyes off the blood. The snows around the stump drank it eagerly, reddening it as he watched. The head bounced off a thick root and rolled. It came up near Greyjoy's feet. Theon was a lean, dark youth of 19 who found everything amusing. He laughed, put his boot on the head, and kicked it away. "Ass," Jon muttered, low enough to Greyjoy did not hear. He put a hand on Bran's shoulder, and Bran looked over at his bastard brother. "You did well," Jon told him solemnly. Jon was 14, an old hand at justice. It seems colder on that long ride back to Winterfell, though the wind had died by then, and the sun was higher in the sky. Bran rode with his brothers, well ahead of the main party, his pony struggling hard to keep up with the horses. The deserter died bravely, Rob said. He was big and broad and growing every day, with his mother's coloring, the fair skin, red-brown hair, and blue eyes, of the Tullys of Riverrun. He had courage, at the least. No, Jon Snow said quietly. It was not courage. This one was dead of fear. You could see it in his eyes, Stark. Jon's eyes were grey, so dark they seemed almost black. But there was little they did not see. He was of an age with Robb, but they did not look alike. Jon was slender, while Robb was muscular. Dark, where Robb was fair. Graceful and quick, where his half-brother was strong and fast. Robb was not impressed. The others take his eyes, he swore. He died well. Race you to the bridge? Done, Jon said, kicking his horse forward. Robb coursed and followed, and they galloped off down the trail, Robb laughing and hooting, Jon silent and intent. The hooves of the horses kicked up showers of snow as they went. Bran did not try to follow. His pony could not keep up. He had seen the ragged man's eyes, and he was thinking of them now. After a while, the sound of Robb's laughter recedes, and the words grew silent again. Woods, so deep in thought was that he never heard the rest of the party until his father moved up the ride beside him. Are you well, Bran? He asked, not unkindly. I drink some little beer. Fuck. Yes, father, Bran told him. He looked up, wrapped in his furs and leathers, mounted on his great warhorse. His lord father loomed over him like a giant. Robb says the man died bravely, but Jon says he was afraid. What do you think? His father asked. Bran thought about it. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That is the only time a man can be brave, his father told him. Do you understand why I did it? He was a wildling, Bran said. They carry off women and sell them to the others. His lord father smiled. Old Nan has been telling you stories again. In truth, the man was an oathbreaker, a deserter from the Night's Watch. No man is more dangerous. The deserter knows his life is forfeit if he is taken, so he will not flinch from any crime, no matter how vile. But you mistaken me. The question was not why the man had to die, but why I must do it. Bran had no answer for that. King Robert has his headsman, he said uncertainly. He does, his father admitted, as did the Targaryen kings before him. Yet our way is the older way. The blood of the first man still flows in the veins of the Starks, and we hold to the belief that a man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. If you would take a man's life, you owe it to him to look him in the eyes and hear his final words. And if you cannot bear to do that, then perhaps the man does not deserve to die. One day, Bran, you will be Robb's bannerman, holding a keep of your own for your brother and your king, and justice will fall to you. When that day comes, you must take no pleasure in the task, but neither must you look away. A ruler who hides behind paid executioners soon forgets what death is. That was when Jon reaped on the crest of the hill before them. He waved and shouted down at them, Father, Bran, come quickly, see what Robb has found. Then he was gone again. Jory rode up beside him. Trouble, my lord? Beyond a doubt. His lord father said, Come, let us see what mischief my sons have rooted out now. He sent his horse into a trot. Jory and Bran and the rest came after. They found Rob on the riverbank north of the bridge, with John still mounted beside him. The late summer snows had been heavy this mountain. Rob stood knee-deep in the white, his hood pulled back so the sun shone in his hair. He was cradling something in his arm, while the boys talked in hushed, excited voices. The rider picked their way carefully through the drifts, groping for solid footing on the hidden, uneven ground. Jory Cassell and Theon Greyjoy were the first to reach the boys. Greyjoy was laughing and joking as he rode. Bran heard the breath go out of him. "Gods!" he exclaimed, struggling to keep control of the horse as he reached for his sword. Jory's sword was already out. "Rob, get away from it!" he called as his horse reared under him. Rob grinned and looked up at the bundle in his arms. "She can't hurt you," he said. "She's dead, Jory." Bran was afire with curiosity by then. He would have spurred the pony faster, but his father made his dismount beside the bridge and approach on foot. Bran jumped off and ran. By then, John, Jory, and Theon Greyjoy had all dismounted as well. "What in the seven hells is that?" Greyjoy was saying. "A wolf," Rob told him. "A freak," Greyjoy said. "Look at the size of it." Bran's heart was thumping in the chest as he pushed through the waist-high rift to his brother's side. Half buried in the blood-stained snow, a huge dark shape slumped in death. Ice has formed in its shaggy grey fur, and the faint smell of corruption clung to it like a woman's perfume. Bran glimpsed blind eyes crawling with maggots, a wide mouth full of yellow teeth, but it was the size of it that made him gasp. It was bigger than his pony, twice the size of the largest hound in his father's kennel. It's no freak," John said calmly. "That's a direwolf. They grow larger than the other kind." Theon Greyjoy said, "There's not been a direwolf sighted south of the wall in 200 years. "I see one now," John replied. Bran tore his eyes away from the monster. That was when he noticed the bundle in Rob's arms. He gave a cry of delight and moved closer. The pup was a tiny ball of grey-black fur, its eyes still closed. He nuzzled blindly against Rob's chest as he cradled it, searching for milk among his leathers, making a sad little whimpery sound. Bran reached out hesitantly. "Go on," Rob told him. "You can touch him." Bran gave the pup a quick, nervous stroke, then turned as John said. "Here we go." His brother put a second pup in his arms. "There are 5 of them." Bran sat down in the snow and hugged the wolf pup to his face. Its fur was soft and warm against his cheek. "Direwolves loose in the realm, after so many years," muttered Hulan, the master of horse. "I like it not." "It is a sign," Jory said. Father frowned. "This is only a dead animal, Jory," he said, yet he seemed troubled. Son crunched under his boot as he moved around the body. "Do we know what killed her? There's something in his throat," Rob told him, proud to have found the answer before his father even asked. "There, just under the jaw." His father knelt and groped under the beast's head with his hand. He gave a yank and held it up to all to see. A foot of shattered antler, tines snapped off, all wet with blood. A sudden silence descended over the party. The man looked at the antler uneasily, and no one dared to speak. Even Bran could sense the fear, though he did not understand. His father tossed the antler to his side and cleansed his hands in the snow. "I'm surprised she lived long enough to whelp," he said. His voice broke the spell. "Maybe she didn't," Jory said. "I've heard tales. Maybe the bitch was already dead when the pups came." "Born with the dead," another man put in. "Worse luck." "No matter," said Hulan. "They'll be dead soon enough to." Bran gave a wordless cry of dismay. "The sooner the better," Theon Greyjoy agreed. He drew his sword. Give the beast here, Bran. The little thing squirmed against him, as if it heard and understood. No! Bran cried out fiercely. It's mine! Put away your sword, Greyjoy, Robb said. For a moment he sounded as commanding as a father, like the lord he would someday be. We will keep these pups. You cannot do that, boy, said Harwin, who was Holland's son. It'd be a mercy to kill them, Holland said. Bran looked to his lord father for the rescue, but got only a frown. Frowed brow. Holland speaks truly, son. Better a swift death than a hard one from cold and starvation. Hey, Avichai, how are you doing? As you can read the title of the stream, I'm reading Game of Thrones Prologue, Illustrated Edition, the first book of the Ice and Fire books. That's the first book, Game of Thrones, with illustrated pictures. Show you here the book. That's this book, the Game of Thrones Illustrated Edition. I'm doing a reading with voice acting and commentary. I read the prologue, and now we're reading the first chapter, Bran 1. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Reading it with you and taking notes and try to do voice acting with my voice of the different characters and show you the pictures. As you can see, there's a picture of the dead direwolf, female direwolf over here, lying dead in the snow. Let's keep going. No! He could feel the tears welling in his eyes, and he looked away. He did not want to cry in front of his father. Robb resisted stubbornly. Sir Roderick's red bitch whelped again last week, he said. It was a small litter, only 2 live pups. She'll have milk enough. She'll rip them apart when they try to nurse. Lord Stark, Jon said. It was strange to hear him call father that. So formal. Bran looked at him with desperate hope. There are 5 pups, he told father. 3 males, 2 female. What of it, Jon? You have 5 true-born children, Jon said. 3 sons, 2 daughters. The direwolf is a sigil of your house. Your children were meant to have these pups, my lord. Bran saw his father's face change, saw the other men exchange glances. He loved Jon with all his heart at the moment. Even at 7, Bran understood what his brother had done. The Count had come right only because Jon had omitted himself. He had included the girls, included even Rickon, the baby, but not the bastard who bore the surname Snow, the name that custom decree be given to all those in the north unlucky enough to be born with no name of their own. The father understood as well. You want no pup for yourself, Jon? He asked softly. The direwolf graces the banner of House Stark, Jon pointed out. I am no Stark, father. The Lord Father regarded Jon thoughtfully. Robb rushed into the silence he left. I will nurse them myself, father, he promised. I will soak a towel with warm milk and give him sucked from that. Me too, Bran echoed. The Lord weighted his sons long and carefully with his eyes. Easy to say and hard to do. I will not have you wasting the servants' time with this. If you want these pups, you will feed them yourself. Is that understood? Bran nodded eagerly. The pups squirmed in his grasp, licked at his face with a warm tongue. You must train them as well, his father said. You must train them. The Candlemaster will have nothing to do with these monsters. I promise you that. And the gods help if you neglect them, or brutalize them, or train them badly. These are no dogs to beg for treats and slink off the kick. A direwolf will rip a man's arm off his shoulder as easily a dog will kill a rat. Are you sure you want this? Yes, father, Bran said. Yes, Rob agreed. The pups may die anyway, despite all you do. They won't die, Rob said. We won't let them die. Keep them then, Jory Desmond. Keep them then. Jory, Desmond, gather up the other pups. It's time we're back to Winterfell. It was not until they were mounted and on their way to the Bran allowed himself to taste the sweet air of victory. By then his pup was snuggled inside his leathers, warm against him, safe for the long ride home. Bran was wondering what to name him. Halfway across the bridge, Jon pulled up suddenly. What is it, Jon? The Lord Father asked. Can't you hear it? Bran could hear the wind in the trees, the clatter of the hooves on the ironwood planks, the whimpering of his hungry pup. But Jon was listening to something else. There, Jon said. He swung his horse around and galloped back across the bridge. They watched him dismount where the direwolf lay dead in the snow. Watched him kneel. A moment later, he was riding back to them, smiling. He must have crawled away from the others, Jon said, or been driven away, his father said, looking at the sixth pup. His fur was white, while the rest of the litter was grey. His eyes were red as the blood in the ragged man who had died in the morning. Bran thought it curious that this pup alone would have opened his eyes, while the other was still blind. An albino, Theon Greyjoy said with wary amusement. This one will die even faster than the others. Jon Snow gave his father Ward a long, chilling look. I think not, Greyjoy, he said. This one belongs to me. And now, let me... that's the first picture. That's this picture. This is the direwolf. The Jon holding the sixth direwolf. The white one. Yeah. That was a very nice reading. I'm gonna do while I can, while I have free time, a little bit of reading of these chapters. Gonna read along as you do. I read this book a long time ago, but I never read this illustrated edition. It's very nice to read it, and it's give me a nice sharing my experience with you, and give a little bit of commentary, do voice acting. So really enjoy it. Right now we really have to go. I have a Torah lesson in a few minutes. So let me just close this up, and I will leave you the evening to you guys. Okay, so that was the first chapter, and read the prologue also. Yeah, next time, I don't know where that's gonna be. We're gonna read Caitlyn 1, and I can see you the preview illustrated picture over here. Just to give you a quick, nice preview. Nice trailer before the next time. We're gonna read Caitlyn 1, probably, which is quite a long chapter. And after that, I'm gonna read you Caitlyn 1 and Daenerys 1. Very nice. Okay. So that was the first two chapters in the Game of Thrones Illustrated Edition. Very nice. Got this over here. Never read this edition. It's a very nice experience to read it. So thank you guys for watching. I really have to go now. So I'll leave you here. Thank you Avichai, thank you Shoshi, thank you for everybody that joined. You really helped me get into affiliate very, very much closer. And I'll leave you to it. Have a nice evening.